Welcome to this special podcast edition of America This Week. My name is Father Eric Sundrup, and I'm joined today by John Anderson. He's a television critic for the Wall Street Journal, film critic here at America Magazine, a contributor to the New York Times, and a member of the New York Film Critics Circle. Welcome, John. We're glad to have you.
Great to be here.
And by Bill McGarvey, a culture columnist here at America Magazine. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks. Good to be here.
And Eloise Blondiau, a producer here at America Media.
Hi, Eric.
Welcome. Good to be with you. In front of camera instead of in the control room. So here at America Magazine, our job is to interpret the church for the world and the world for the church. Our team of writers and editors love leading the conversation on art and culture from the Catholic perspective. So we're here to tackle the upcoming Academy Awards, which ostensibly will be celebrating this year's best films, but don't worry, we'll get a chance to pump our favorites that got snubbed, and we'll try to extrapolate some of the big ideas and themes present that will resonate with a Catholic audience. And we're very lucky to have you with us, John, one of the leading voices in film criticism, to kind of help guide this conversation among some of us, myself included, who may be more amateur viewers. Let's start, actually. I have the mic. I get to make the call with Black Panther, one of the nominees for Best Picture. What does it mean, I think, I kind of want to start the conversation with this idea of what does it mean to have a Marvel movie that sort of takes center stage and ends up as a Best Picture nominee? I'm also going to use this to get a little bit into another nominee in a different category. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse got nominated in the animated series. I was joking with a friend, like, hopefully they'll beat Pixar, but Disney owns Marvel, so it's very confusing. And
it's all one company.
It's all one company at this point. Yeah. But we've obviously, this is not new. We've been living through a sort of Marvel is all over the cinematic universe, the Marvel cinema domination and everything that's going on. It's very powerful, but Black Panther is a little different than some of these other films. I think that's something that's very interesting and resonated with audiences. I think that was an interesting point. What did you guys think about that?
I think this year's nominees, and Black Panther is a great example. Is witness to the fact that we're in a very changing time in the Academy Awards. I mean, what was the failed Best Popular Picture category for 5 minutes they had, right. And they pulled that. Black Panther is a really fine movie. There's a lot of social consciousness that perhaps has been ushered in during the Trump era. And so it's a wonderful film. I don't know if it'll be Best Picture, but I'm glad it's nominated in the vein of why, the Batman, Christopher Nolan movies should have been as well back in the day, I think.
Yeah, you joke about Disney and Marvel being just one company. Marvel movies are one movie. Except for Black Panther.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's a unique film. I mean, look at not just the casting, but the creation of a world. I was very heartened on Halloween in Brooklyn to see all these little black kids in Black Panther outfits, yelling "Wakanda forever."
Yeah.
On DeKalb Avenue, it's a great thing, socio-politically.
And the stakes were really high as well,
right.
Because people wanted to show that a film like this, with kind of a cast pretty much all people of color, can make a lot of money, and it can also be really entertaining, and it can be really, really smart too. And I think all of the details, like the costumes to the details of the world, were really thoughtfully and well executed.
For me, it's always interesting to watch how the Catholic audience reacts to the superhero genre and the comic setup. I think there's real quick, easy, like Superman is the prototype. It's easy, every time they do a Superman movie and he flies out of the atmosphere and, you see the sun, and then they have Kal-El saying, "You are my son, I send you to these people." I'm like, well, that's a little Christological for sure.
Sure.
But this theme of the world is more interesting and more mysterious than you normally imagine, right? That there's something breaking in that's fantastic and amazing, and you can be part of that. That's obviously going to resonate with a Catholic audience, or any audience really that is paying attention to the concept of transcendence. Right? So that's really important. But there's also the battle theme. Everything that's going on has cosmic significance, which is I love your comment, John. Like, all the Marvel movies are the same movie. It's all one cosmic battle. But that idea that there really is a battle for the soul of reality going on at all time, and there's a lot of things happening. You can be part of that and pay attention to that. Those themes are huge in comics. I got in a lot of trouble here. We had a meeting right after Infinity Wars, And I went opening night because I love opening night at a Marvel movie, and it's just nutty and everyone's screaming.
Do you dress up?
I don't dress up.
Do you wear your glasses?
Currently,
no cosplaying.
no cosplay. Never mind. We'll let that go. But staff was saying, don't spoil it. And I said, what do you mean don't spoil it? Everyone dies and everyone lives. It's a comic book. That's like standard, like this, the idea of resurrection, the idea of, there's going to be rebirth and all this stuff is happening at the same time. Like that's standard, I'm not surprised in Infinity Wars when everyone you expect to be there gets killed. And I also have every anticipation that there will be.
I think
both for reasons of capitalism, you cannot kill your breadwinners, but for other setups. So, yeah, I think this is a really interesting movie. But we'll move away from the superhero stuff. Other than to give a huge shout out to Into the Spider-Verse.
I thought it was great.
That's
I really,
terrific.
I like it, John.
I loved it.
I loved it. I was super surprised at how much I loved that.
I have that is the best sort of cinematic experience of a comic book I've ever had. Where I felt like I was watching sometimes the Marvel movies are live action, taking the plot from a comic book, but I felt like I was
watching a comic book.
The way they cut, the way they did the shots, the way they did the art.
Well, the animation is generally kind of they aspire to style, and in this film, it was every style you could imagine.
Yeah.
Was just it was like a Kandinsky or something.
Well,
They had anime style in there. Then they had the sort of really of Looney Tunes cartoonish style.
Tex Avery stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
It was a really interesting.
Eloise is strangely silent. This is such a.
For some reason,
It's the boy
this
stuff.
really wasn't the film that I was looking forward to this year.
Well, who's going to introduce our next one?
That would be me.
Okay, great.
BlacKkKlansman was the Spike Lee film that he is up for the first time, which I was surprised at for Best Director, starring John David Washington and Adam Driver. It is about Ron Stallworth, the Colorado Springs police officer who infiltrates the Ku Klux Klan. He's an African-American man. And the film has, in some ways, reinvigorated or brought Spike back to center stage in many ways. He's never been far off center stage, but it certainly has resonated, I think, in many ways again in the time and space we're living in. I liked the film. I saw it twice. I liked it better the second time. But I have to admit, and this is unfair to Spike, I'm not so sure after you make a masterpiece like Do the Right Thing that 30 years ago that I think Spike did well with this. Once I learned about how off the actual story it maybe was, it was a little disturbing. So I liked BlacKkKlansman. I have friends who were huge Spike Lee fans who loved it. It's worth seeing, but not to me, to me, this whole year's crop is slightly less strong. I feel like movies like Sorry to Bother You, a la what Moonlight was a couple of years ago, would have been very powerful to see.
I was thinking that myself when we were preparing for this last year. I felt there was so much going on, and there's just a lot of strong contenders. I don't feel that same way.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, at least, last year I was very passionate about Lady Bird.
Yes.
I was very passionate about Call Me By Your Name. And the thing I really liked about those films, and which I don't think is really happening in this year's nominations, is I think a lot of these films we're seeing this year, they're enjoyable, they're entertaining, but they're quite forgettable. And I do have to say, though, that for BlacKkKlansman, I did find memorable. I do think it succeeded in creating, I'm not saying it's Spike Lee's best film or maybe the best film of the year, but comparing it to the other nominations, I think it did a good job of being entertaining, thought-provoking, and also creating kind of a lasting moment, which with some of the other films I felt were kind of a spectacle, enjoyable in the moment and kind of as soon as they ended, they were over. Whereas this is one worth seeing.
I thought Laura Harrier was amazing as the girlfriend. I'm sorry I forgot the name of the character, but she was great.
I mean, this is one of those films where there was it's like a strange way of judging films, but there's a scene toward the end when they're getting ready to discover the secret, or you don't know how it's going to play out. And I can remember sitting in the theater and my palms are getting sweaty and I'm getting nervous. And there's very few films that will really do that. Like the original Godfather did that.
Right.
Like that. I do not want to make the same comparison, but there was this moment, the way they built the tension there which shows that there was a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, I just don't think Spike ever knows when to back up. You know, I mean, it's like he tells you what he told you, and then he hits you over the head with it one more time before the credits roll. I mean, what's the next film we're talking about? Because it would make a good segue.
All of this is happening at the same time. We also have the controversy over Green Book.
Yes.
Which...
Yeah.
That's John.
John.
Not the controversy.
John's not in charge of the controversy. What would you say about, one, about the controversy, also the film itself?
Well, I'm not sure I buy into that particular criticism because they seem to both benefit from each other. I just think they're both cartoons, and the movie is ludicrous. I haven't cringed so much at a major motion picture since God, I don't even know. I mean, it's
I was waiting to hear what this film
the other one was. Yeah, I don't know. It may be in a class all its own. But I really kind of loathe Green Book, and it's another one of these period pieces that wants you to believe that everything's better now.
Comparisons have been made to Driving Miss Daisy.
Well,
right?
yeah, but anybody with, any movie that had someone sitting in the back seat would be compared to Driving Miss Daisy.
What about a reverse version?
Kind of a oversimplistic idealization of racial reconciliation.
Which gets to your critique, John. These were cartoons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why the Italian Anti-Defamation League
I kind of agree.
isn't complaining about it. It's just the broadest kind of portrait of early '60s Bronx Italian life, and actually the Mahershala Don Shirley, who was an eccentric jazz genius, is kind of painted this, in a similarly caricaturish way.
Mm-hmm. I've had the experience, I've seen it a few times, where people are clapping at the end, and then we come out, and I think it's almost generational. I think a certain generation over 50, 60 finds it to be really heartening and gratifying. And I think another generation that's perhaps got a completely different racial and social and political outlook sees it in far more cynical light. And when I did do the research on the family who actually complained, it was fascinating to see, geez, this really wasn't what their uncle would have wanted, or his brother, Maurice Shelley. Maurice, I'm Shirley, I apologize. It's hard to say that it's not entertaining because it was, but you have to suspend a lot of your critical functioning.
About all of them.
And then, yeah. But it's really hard not to. It's tough because you have two of our finest actors, Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali, and I loved what Ali said. I did the best with what I could with the material I had.
That was my thought.
Yeah.
I mean, that they both just did great.
The best they could.
Work with terrible writing.
And this gets to much of the controversy. You can walk out of that movie feeling like, wow, we've done something and solved things, and you've touched none of the systemic problems.
No.
Like you walk out feeling, if you're white, you probably walk out feeling fine. If you're of a minority, you wouldn't have the same reaction. Systemic change is not going to happen through just two individual relationships. Right. There's a lot to work on there. We'll keep moving. We're not going to solve that controversy. So let's talk about the Star is Born. Eloise, you're going to start this one?
Yes, and speaking of, all generations being pleased by a movie, I think this is
it's this year's Lady Bird?
I definitely cannot throw myself behind A Star is Born as I did Lady Bird. But I do think, it was fun. I thought it was really fun. And kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about the movies this year, the theme, I think, was a spectacle. That they really kind of create a spectacle that's fun and entertaining in the moment, but perhaps not creating a lasting mood. That's kind of how I felt with A Star is Born. I mean, it's hard not to be excited by Lady Gaga in this role. I thought she was phenomenal. And obviously this was Bradley Cooper's debut as a director, and a lot has been said about their relationship. I was less won over by him, and I think, little indulgent maybe to direct a film in which you are the leading man, and with all these kind of very much
close-ups,
these lingering shots of your face. I think that was an interesting decision, which maybe worked out for him, but not my most not my favorite movie, but definitely one to watch.
It's John, in your reviews, we're talking about every generation gets one of these.
Yeah, well, it's kind of true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Every generation
right.
gets. Your question was, what did we do to deserve this?
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah,
John's not a fan of it.
Well, there's a lot to like about it. I think Lady Gaga is the chief thing to like about it.
Definitely.
I was in a theater and I'm watching a couple of people that are a little younger than me, and one of them says, "This is kind of an opening moment for Gaga. She's really becoming like a star now." And I was like, "Where have you?"
Well, right.
But it's crossing over.
No, but
to
I think
another-
that's true.
It's in a new audience.
Yeah, I'll tell you one. I saw it in a theater. Did you all see it? How did you all see it?
Theater.
In a
Theater.
theater?
Yeah.
Okay, I saw it in one with where the sound was like wired to the seats.
Really?
And I'll tell you, it's the way to see it.
Yeah.
I mean, because the music, there's a lot of really intense, Southern rock, whatever you want to call it. It's not country music, but it's
kind of like alt
something.
country. Yeah, it's sort of.
I didn't think the music was as great as some people did. I
I got
Well, the
say.
one song is good. I mean,
Yeah, one song
Shallow
is
is
good,
good,
but-
and it's going to win the Oscar for best song.
I have to disagree, Eloise. I mean, I didn't see it in this fantastical movie theater that John saw it in, where everything was
34th
wired.
Street.
Wow. But I will say that as a songwriter and a huge fan of this sort of alt country Jason Isbell world, I think Jason Isbell co-wrote something. I was actually pleasantly surprised that some of the songs were as good. I thought they were good, really good, and they wouldn't have been out of place on a lot of artists like Steve Earle or Jason Isbell's records. Not to say every song I loved, and I did find it a little bit syrupy and amazing.
One of my problems with the movie is that I did not care very much about Bradley Cooper's character.
Yeah.
And I do think, given that Lady Gaga gives such a compelling performance, I would have loved there to be more writing about who she was, who those guys were, hanging out at this house where she was, living with her dad. I think that would have given it made for a much richer movie.
They're like the guys who hang around by the cars in the wedding scene of The Godfather.
Yeah, they are.
I
was playing it.
The drivers.
Well-
This is the movie about the drivers.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to note one thing, though, about Star is Born. Bradley Cooper not getting a Best Director
Very important.
nomination.
What do you think that was?
It's weird because
Snub.
Oscar history says that the actor turned director gets the Oscar. I mean, Scorsese didn't win for Raging Bull because Robert Redford won for Ordinary People. Scorsese didn't win for Goodfellas because I think it was Kevin Costner won for Dances with Wolves.
Wow. Okay.
Mel Gibson won for Braveheart. Laurence Olivier won for Hamlet.
Ben Affleck.
No. Oh, God. Really?
What didn't
Eloise.
Did he get it? Did he get it? For the
Oh no, he
did
didn't.
not.
I'm
For
sorry.
those who have the
My mistake.
visuals, John is practically walking off set right
Yeah,
now.
but-
Oh my God!
But
Ben
if
Affleck.
if they're given, because there's so many actors in the Academy, if an actor directs a movie, he sort of traditionally wins.
Yeah. So there's another film up for Best Picture that's all about music. We got Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh yeah.
Right.
What are your thoughts about this film?
So Bohemian Rhapsody is about a far more interesting person in the sense of Freddie Mercury of Queen, directed sort of controversially by Bryan Singer, who was pulled off the project. To be honest, I like Queen a lot. I think they were a great band, and I went back and listened to a lot of Queen music after seeing it, and watched a lot of documentaries. It really is a bit of a whitewashing of the story, or certainly a very much turns the story around. And that's the fact that the two members of the Queen are very deeply involved as producers.
Right, yeah, they had a lot of oversight on that.
It's a good biopic. I was kind of amazed that this isn't a Best Picture, but then doing the research today, it's made $800 million.
It was like
worldwide box office.
It was like going to a concert. I had a great time at the concert.
Yeah. I think that's why people already know the music. They
Yes.
like the music. they know they're going to have a good time.
And he was an incredibly
Having a good
charismatic figure, and important, and interesting figure, and fascinating. And I think, having been in a lot of bands, a nightmare to be in a band with Freddie Mercury.
Well, Eloise and I have been talking about this. We're more enjoying the press tour with Rami Malek.
My favorite.
Horribly awkward.
What's he doing?
He's just so phenomenally awkward. He's not given very lengthy interviews. He's kind of been pictured on stage kind of trying to say hi to Nicole Kidman and failing and offending.
That makes me identify with him. I'm like, oh, he's awkward. He can't even get the people he knows. I like him for that.
Oh, really? So I didn't know he was that awkward. I mean, the guy was in The Master with...
We don't know whether he's awkward or not. He's just being portrayed by the media. I work in the media. We have a way of latching onto a story.
I think he's awkward.
I just thought, going back to the involvement of Brian May and the other member,
Roger
Taylor, you've never seen a band that got along quite so well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the problems were not the band.
Which was the real issue there. First of all, Freddie Mercury was...
in the movie, yeah.
In the movie, Freddie Mercury is somehow taken in by this manager rather than... I think Freddie... I mean, I have no idea, but I think Freddie probably was had a lot of darkness to him and certainly wasn't simply led down that path. And I agree, the band sort of whitewashed.
It's really interesting to me. There's a lot of controversy around all of the picks. There's controversy in the making of the film, how it was done, controversy about the pick itself. Like, Vice is one I want to get to, particularly. John's groaning and getting ready to go into this one, so I'm just going to. I'm going to release you, John. Let's talk about Vice.
I just want to say, as a prelude to Vice, I just want to say that it's curious how many of these stories about the different contenders are unearthed around Oscar time. It's not an accident. It's publicists orchestrating smear campaigns against other films. And
so our politics is now leaping into the Oscars.
I think Oscar publicists are way ahead of the White House on this kind of thing.
Op research, right?
Weinstein used to do it.
Yeah.
There's a story about Green Book that would keep people from voting for Green Book. There's the Bohemian Rhapsody. Bryan Singer did. Right. Is it a homophobic movie plot line?
I didn't hear that one.
It's not accidental.
Yeah. I think that's all of this controversy comes from. That's an important insight.
Yeah, Vice.
So that leads you into Vice. Yeah, speaking of controversy,
Vice. I just think I don't think a movie about Dick Cheney should have ever been made. I think it's an affront to good taste, and the fact that it's got an Oscar nomination is just reflects badly on them.
Wow. Okay. See, I really think.
I think it's a moral issue.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
You don't think he makes a case?
Which kind of flattens the conversation.
Well, no, but does it? No, but
okay.
I got to say, I think Adam McKay is onto something. I mean, he's made plenty of funny movies, and Anchorman was one of my favorite comedies. But I really thought Big Short was a really smart, well-done film, and I liked his form of filmmaking, which is, very gaudy and playing with conventions all the time, and I like that. I think it shows real guts and real sort of I don't care, and. It's interesting you say that. I don't know if I would agree with that, John. I think you thought that. Look, I mean, to me, Dick Cheney comes off like a cipher in the movie. We have no understanding of why he is as I think dark a figure as he is, and
maybe that's one of my problems.
You wanted to be. I don't
know if there's any there with Cheney
in reality,
except for power.
Yeah,
I mean, if you watch Errol Morris's film on Donald Rumsfeld, you get sort of a window. It's a passive.
Is that the documentary, the known knowns?
The known unknowns?
The known unknowns, yeah.
I always mix it up.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything funny about Dick Cheney.
That was the way it became farcical about the way power was used. And then there were some shots when you were splicing in shots of human beings being tortured.
Yeah,
in the middle of what appeared to me to be like a SNL skit, there was a part of me that I just started getting kind of revolted by what the film was doing. Yeah. So I left that film actually quite upset.
Wow,
I'm surprised anyone saw it. To be honest, it's a really tough sell. Like I personally
Christian Bale sells it.
Well, I think they were trying. I don't know how that came together. I'm with John. I'm interested.
Did you not see it, Eloise?
I did not, and I am glad
is
I
a
did
mar-
not.
wait, you're
By the sounds of this conversation,
I got to say, I disagree with my fellow panelists here, who I respect greatly, but I would say that, and while I'm not a Dick Cheney fan at all, and it offers no insight into Dick Cheney, which I think also might be the point, and I think you make a great point about juxtaposition, some of these things, although I think that's sort of the violence and the horribleness that I think Adam's going for. But it's a completely valid criticism. It's completely valid. The Natural Born Killers did a lot of that sort of thing.
This is a film about power.
Not a great movie.
There's a great parallel with Dick Cheney.
Not the greatest movie ever, but I thought it had effectiveness. It's had some effect, I thought.
I'm going to actually move us to favorite from that theme of power.
Sure.
What's going on with power and how that shifts things. So both the favorite and Roma have 10 nominations each, so they're kind of in a little different league here. What do we all think about the favorite?
what a show!
I think you loved it, Eric. I think you did.
I'm now saying in Clerics that I absolutely loved that film. I thought it was phenomenal. It is disturbing, but it was an amazing film.
I thought I thought it was kind of interesting seeing some of Olivia Colman, who has really made a name for herself in British television. She's been well known as one of the best actresses in the UK. And actually, the structure of this film kind of felt to me like one of the BBC kind of period dramas.
Costume dramas.
So it was interesting to see it make it onto the kind of the bigger screen in the way that it was sectioned off in chapters. I think it kind of could have worked really well on TV, actually, if we're talking about the kind of...
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Wow. It was in chapters. Like we had actual chapter headings.
Commercial breaks.
Yeah.
Work them in.
We're done.
I liked it an awful lot. I don't think I liked it as much as I have many friends who love this film, and I will say that I think it probably should be, in terms of filmmaking, the achievement that would win for me if I was in charge. This would, of the nominees, I should say, not the one I nominated, would be the achievement in filmmaking that I thought was most interesting. I think that director, while I really didn't like The Lobster, I know I have other friends who loved it. He's clearly a really great filmmaker and very interesting in his storytelling and his tone and what he's about. John, you're about to jump in on there or something?
Well, no, I was just thinking it's baffled me that they, well, of course it's smart, but they've sort of marketed The Favorite as this wacky comedy when it's an art film from beginning to end. The camera work. When do you see? You don't see anybody using fisheye lenses, with an Emma Stone movie.
Right.
I mean, visually, it's almost deliberately off-putting.
Mm-hmm.
And
the characters are off-putting.
Well, yeah, they are, and the humor is
dark,
rude, and I think if you watch the commercial on TV and then went to see the movie, you'd be like,
"What happened?
Where am I?"
The way they're billing it as it like a comedy, I think is interesting, because what I was fascinated by, and this is like a Catholic angle on this, is how secrecy destroys you. Like
You're really stretching the Catholic.
No. That's that. Oh, now we're in a fight. Now we're really in a fight. Here we go. So I'll go Ignatian spirituality.
Okay.
Right. The importance of transparency and openness.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if you hold all that together in secrecy, your worst demons get the full run, right?
I can see that being.
So that's a standard rule for Ignatian spirituality. As soon as you want to hold something in secret there, then you're gonna give the evil spirit, however you want to personify that. But the way the film, like the going through the dark passages, and then all the secrets that are kept in there, and then how that plays in power, and then everybody in that film is trying to get a hold of power by wielding all the secrets that they think no one has awareness of. Yeah. My favorite scene in that is when Emma Stone's character sees the first night she's getting a book out of the shelf, and the queen and her lover, and the close-ups on her face and her reaction as she's trying to get out of there, and the uncomfortableness and the way it was shot. I just like, oh, this is all going south very quickly.
That's fascinating. I would not. Yeah, I mean, you make a good case for it, but I feeling of the 1,000 people, you'd be the only one coming out with that. But you need to get to the rooftops but you make a good point. I think it's a worthy film.
I can't go into a film without thinking of from the Catholic perspective.
I will say, though, I didn't have the same... I did actually have... I know the film was dark and complex, and the short kind of advert advertising the movie can't do justice to that. But my overwhelming experience of the film was as a spectacle, which had very dark, intense moments and maybe lessons, like you said, Eric. But I did think that it was really managed to be very entertaining.
Oh, I thought so too.
Oh yeah.
But it's one of those, it's one of those period pieces that wants to strip away, at the same time, the veneer.
Right.
People are dirty. People have bad teeth.
Right.
People are in the mud. People. God knows where Rachel Weisz showed up, wound up in that one sequence. But
in some ways, Bohemian Rhapsody could have taken some lessons from stripping off the veneer in some ways.
Yeah, there's
because this is almost like a modern rock star fantasy in some ways. And I think remember the scene where they're dancing and there's clearly dancing like 20. He's really bringing in 21st century styles, and I thought that was an interesting choice.
Yeah, the dance scenes was like I don't even know what I'm watching.
Yeah, no, I do.
It's stylized and
it wasn't the Lobster. That's all I cared about.
So John, your review. Your review of Roma was highly favorable, and do you think it deserved the 10 nominations that it got?
Oh, I think it deserves everything.
Deserves everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I actually gushed in my review. I really, if I had to do it over again, I would step.
Oh, you want your editor to pull you back a little?
I would wind myself down a little because I think I had written it right after seeing it, and I was just, semi-hysterical. So,
talk to me about that experience.
But it's. It's a film geek's movie in a lot of ways. I mean, I think it's beautiful. It's the kind of movie that a lot of people say there's nothing going on. And I thought there was something going on at every second. There was, if it wasn't a film, if it wasn't a reference to another film, it was an insight into a character done in the most subtle way. And there's a lot of film stuff in it. There's that sequence where the father who's about to go AWOL is trying to get his too big car in his too small garage. And there are all these cuts, like the cigarette in the ashtray, the mirror that's against the wall. And it's like it's Jim Jarmusch, Kaurismäki brothers. The editing was funny. Everything was done so well. There's that scene where I always forget her name, but the principal character is in the movie theater with the boyfriend who's about to go AWOL.
Cleo.
And it's like there's Mexican's Three Stooges movie on the screen.
Yeah.
And then between them and the screen is this Mexican movie palace like nothing you've seen since the Lowe's Paradise closed on the Grand Concourse, which dates me, I have to say. And then there's them in close-up, and it's this deep focus shot that is just, if you don't see it on a big screen, you don't see it. And it's just a hallucination. And at the same time, it's this very sort of muted tone movie that is about this very marginalized character. In fact, I was saying before that I think the fact that Miss Aparicio got an Oscar nomination is kind of contrary to the spirit of the film. I mean, it's a movie about a person on the margins, and it's done very subtly, in very nuanced ways. And to glamorize that sort of feels wrong.
Feels wrong?
So I hope it wins, but
I think Netflix did it was very. I'm sorry, Eloise, go ahead, jump in.
I was going to say it wouldn't feel wrong to me if she won.
No.
But I know what you meant.
I wish her well.
I remember the opening scene is you're watching water come down a drain, and it's a tight shot. And that's what it's all the director filmmaker is going to give at that moment. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to have to switch ways. Like, I'm going to pay attention to everything you tell me to pay attention to because this matters.
Absolutely.
This film.
Right.
Like I felt like I was a little sort of like in a class. Like, and now you understand. For this film, watch what I'm showing you because every little thing is going to matter.
Do you remember the plane flying through the reflected in the water?
Reflected in the water.
The plane shows up 6 or 7 times.
Flying out. Yeah. And so getting myself into that mindset for that film, which was just stunning and beautiful, and but it also is having me pay attention to class, to race, to the inequality that's going on. There's a scene where everyone's doing something crazy, and Cleo, the main character, is the only one that can balance.
Right.
That I remember seeing that and going,
That's
a great moment.
That's a great scene.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did it need to be black and white?
I like that.
I like it, but
I don't know. For some
A
reason,
little
like
pretentious. Movies.
everything that I think of as
Shaking your
beautiful that way is sepia toned in my head. So like I experienced the whole thing.
Well, even surreal moments, like there's a shot where they go away for Christmas to this hacienda somewhere, and they're shooting guns at one point. It was something out of the original Rollerball.
I thought it was the rules of the game.
It was okay, right? You're probably sure. And then there's a fire at night, and they're all doing.
Yeah.
And there's some weird character in like a troll suit walking. I mean, it's almost like a surreal dream.
Well, it was like Bergman and Renoir, and
Right, yeah.
he's quoting all these things. You don't have to know it, but he is.
I couldn't help. Also, one of the pivotal moments is the Corpus Christi massacre that happens, and how that drives some of the drama there. And so, I'm a Jesuit, so I'm aware of all those like the implications of the social justice.
Absolutely,
and what was going on at the time at Mexico. I've got Mexican Jesuits who are friends.
Oh, really?
Trying to like play all that out, and so it's that wasn't the driver of the plot because we were paying attention to the people, but and then I started to do some more research on that and ask some questions about how did the experiences affect?
It's the Dirty Wars in Mexico.
Yeah, it's the Dirty Wars.
And it was the Corpus Christi massacre.
Yeah, so basically, Dirty War hired guns to take out the student protesters, which is what we're seeing happen there.
Yeah, it was.
And
so those people being sort of trained out in the hinterlands.
Yes.
As supposed to be just rebels or some sort of that are okay.
Yep. So there's a lot going on there, and there's the scene in the hospital after that where I'm going to avoid spoilers. So actually, I'm going to stop that right there. But there's a hospital scene where you see all the people whose lives and the care that they need is completely messed up by that, and
right.
You're going to kill me again for like picking up these tiny nuances.
You're supposed to. I don't want to kill you.
The people praying rosaries and a couple tight shots of that. You can see it in their hand, and then when they don't know what to do, reciting a prayer. So there's because it's so well done and the film is so immersive. The Mexican culture comes across there too, which is going to have a lot of the Catholic setup, even though that family was
completely unreligious. In some ways,
someone raised unreligious, and yet you can't help if you're in Mexico.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think something you said, Eric, which makes this film maybe stand out from some of the other picks, is that a good film really helps you pay attenon and has those details for you.
She's your ladybird.
That is exactly this, and I think that's what Lady Bird did too.
So we talked about the mom getting Best Supporting Actress. I would have given her like Worst Supporting Mother ever. Like, everything that is. I know this. I got to be careful. This is a real mother, someone's mother. But I was like, what? The portrayal is like, whoa.
Yeah, it's tough. She's going through a lot though. I mean, clearly her husband leaves, and it was a beautiful movie. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's broken. It's human, and it lets you pay attention to this.
And that part where they burn the sled in the fire at the end, it was... Oh, no, sorry, no spoilers.
Now we're going to have to explain that.
It's Rosebud in Spanish. Rosa.
I want to see that Mexican Three Stooges movie.
That's not Mexican. That's
a
British movie. I want to watch it again. Who's the character? He's a gap-toothed British actor and it's...
Terry Thomas?
Oh, yeah, I'll have to go look it up here. I forgot. But I saw it a second time, like, what is this movie?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was a Mexican film.
I could be wrong, but I think it's definitely a British actor I recognize from the 60s. Yeah.
So we're going to go into the speed round.
Oh.
I got to move us fast. So is there something that was snubbed this year or didn't get enough credit that you want? So John's in right away, so we'll have John go first.
You have to raise your hand.
Support the Girls, which I thought was maybe the best. I mean, I'm a big Roma fan, but Support the Girls I thought was really a genius movie. Andrew Bujalski, who is the sort of original mumblecore guy, made what I think was the most feminist film of the year. I don't know if Eloise saw it. But
I didn't, sadly, but it's on my list now.
I mean, Regina Hall, I don't want to say Regina King because there's too many Reginas. Regina Hall got the New York Critics Award she plays the manager of this sort of Hooters-type bar. And it's really about besides being funny and the acting is great and it's very entertaining, but it's got the most powerful message about workplace oppression and female empowerment, and it has an ending scene which doesn't have a sled, but it's really, really strong and kind of heartbreaking. Okay. So I'm sorry that didn't get more.
So that deserves some more love. Eloise, you got any?
I have not seen as many movies, I think, this year as you.
John and I don't work as hard as you guys. That's why we see all these.
I'm just sitting home watching movies all day.
Exactly. John, I'm going to add that to my list because I have not seen it. As I mentioned earlier, Sorry to Bother You, I thought was my favorite film of the year. It is about class. It's about work. It's far more futuristic and fantastical, and I just think really great. I think he's a really interesting voice. I want to see what he comes up with next.
My favorite was, oddly enough, it's Into the Spider-Verse.
Great.
So it's got its nomination.
I agree.
It's in there.
Great movie.
But ones I was deeply moved by are already getting nominations. So I'm kind of happy with that.
What's your big one for the year?
I loved Roma. I really did.
Or not the favorite. I thought the favorite was good.
I loved Roma. I loved the favorite. I'll be happy if either one wins. But I'll have less explaining to do if it's Roma. But I just thought the favorite was this brilliant analysis of the darkness.
I think it'll
the dark side of humanity.
If I'm the Oscars, I'd vote for that because I think Netflix is an intruder, and I think Roma might. It's also foreign language, might be. But I think for pure filmmaking, he's clearly a huge talent. Although
Yorgos.
Yes, and the favorites are really.
Okay, so now constraining.
Oh well, I mean, of the nominations at least,
yeah.
If I just had to choose from what we have here, I really liked Roma, and I know I'm in a minority, and I know that it's not perfect, but BlacKkKlansman I also really enjoyed.
Yeah, so I'm going to constrain our final vote here to the nominees. So, what should win? This is different than what will win. But what should win of the nominees?
I think the favorite should win with qualifications, and honestly, I'm wondering. This might be crazy, but Black Panther might win.
Interesting.
And Green Book might win too, but I think there's been a lot of difficult backlash lately. But that would be that's a wild guess.
But if you could pick, if you're picking,
the favorite, I think would be of the nominees. Again, but my favorites weren't in there. But I would think the favorite. Or Roma is also wonderful, but the favorite.
John,
what should win?
What should win? If you can
Roma.
Pick, Roma should win.
Yeah, I'm afraid Green Book would win, but I really think if I had to put money on it, I think Roma will win.
Eloise, what should win?
I agree. I really hope that Roma does win.
Okay, so
clearly
well, I was leaning Roma, but just because the way the votes are going,
we talked you out of it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with favorite.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I think favorite should win.
Yeah,
but
Cuarón, is he up for foreign language film too? Is he up for?
Yes.
Yes. How does he not win that? And has that ever been happening?
Well, that'll split. That could split the vote. He's also up for cinematographer.
Yeah.
He
does like everything on his films.
He wrote it. He shot it.
Right.
He directed it. I said during the critics' vote, let's just give him an actor award too. I mean, he's not in it, but let's give him one.
Best craft services.
Best supporting by an actress.
That's great. As you can see, there's no complete consensus on any of this, both in the public, both here as we're talking about this. But there's a lot of things to see. There's a lot of things worth seeing. There's a lot going on. So pay attention. I think there's a good caution from you too, John, about these controversies. Be a little suspicious of where they all come from and how they're set it up.
Research is alive and well.
Research is alive and well, but I think it says a lot just to the world we're living in. To be, how do we be honest about the reality where there are problems, but also not lead to this polarization and this sort of the worst case scenario in every setup. So it presents a lot of interesting controversy and stuff to pay attention to. So I'm hoping we take a look at a lot of these. I've got a few that I got to look up now to make sure I see. So I'm glad you guys gave me these snub lists. So I'll just
me too. I've got a viewing list.
You have a viewing list. Get those viewed before the Oscars.
I think the Oscars are in trouble in some ways. I really do. I mean, between losing hosts, I think their relevancy is deeply in question. Between the best popular films, the fiasco, and I think they're searching desperately for an identity.
We will see how this plays out.
Well, that could work against Roma. you know.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, with the Netflix, if there's an anti-Netflix sentiment.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for joining us for this special edition podcast of America This Week. You can listen to us every week on SiriusXM 129, the Catholic channel, and on America This Week, the podcast. So if you're watching us on YouTube today, please take a second to subscribe to our channel so that you never miss out on our reporting analysis of faith and culture. And thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for the panelists for being with us and talking today.
Great to be here.
Hey, I'm Zach Davis from America Media. Did you like that last video? I thought you might have since you watched to the end. You should hit the subscribe button to your right to get more great content from America Media. That'll make sure you don't miss a thing. So hit subscribe. I'll see you there.